Yeah.
Good morning. This is August the 12th, 2020, Giving Executive Appointments Committee. I'm Councilman Stokes, Chairman of the committee. I'd like to introduce members of this committee. Councilwoman Clark, member of the committee from the 14th District. Councilman Cohen, member of the committee from the 1st District. Councilman Yitzi District. We also have Nina Demlis from the mayor's office. We also have Marguerite Karen, who is the committee staff person. Did I miss anybody? Dominic McAlley from Council President Young's office. Okay. Today we'll review the following nominations. For the Ethics Board of Baltimore City, Melody Hingera will go first, and then on our second nomination will be for the Civilian Review Board is Levi Zeslo. Before we hear from the nominees, I'm asking everyone to mute yourself when you're not speaking. Identify yourself before you speak. Speak slowly and clearly, and mute yourself after you finish speaking. Is President Scott? I don't see him there, so we're gonna move on. Before we hear from the nominees, the public, is there anyone in attendance who would like to testify on behalf of any of the nominees that's on this virtual call?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We will start in order. I'll call your name. The committee would like our first nominee will be, Melody Henginger, and the committee would like for each of you to state your name, tell us about your background and interest in the position, and share your vision for the board. After you finish the presentation, committee members will have questions for you. So Ms. Melody Henginger, you are our first nominee.
Thank you, Councilman Stokes. First of all, just thank you so much for having me this morning. I'd like to especially thank Mayor Young and his office for the nomination. As an initial matter, the city of Baltimore has always held a very near and dear place in my heart. I came here in my late 20s, which was many moons ago. I came here in my late 20s as a student at the University of Baltimore School of Law in 1999, and that's when I really first fell in love with the school. I lived in Bolton Hill during that time. I left and went to practice law in Washington, D.C. for a large firm there. And then my husband, who was also a University of Baltimore law grad and a Marine Corps JAG, was then stationed in North Carolina. So we left Baltimore for about 8 years, but we returned in 2007. And although we're no longer married, he's still very invested in the city. He's actually a judge on the district court bench. And I went back to work in 2012 for the Baltimore City Law Department, where I had another sort of explosion of love and understanding for the city. I worked under George Nilsen, and I practiced defending primarily every one of the agencies in the city. So I had the opportunity to get a really unique understanding of the way the city operates and its various agencies, how municipal government works, the importance of transparency in that regard. And that was a very, very special time for me. In 2015, I went and practiced privately with several law firms in the city. I'm currently an attorney with the law firm of Baker Donaldson. I'm in the health law group. I do practice some general and commercial litigation, but I have a niche practice in organ transplant and donation law. And I've just been very lucky that I now have teenagers who are allowing me to have a little bit more free time, and I can devote this time to serving the city that I love so much. I live in Federal Hill. I am about 2 miles door to door from City Hall in my own office. I think you may have seen from my application that my current husband also works for the city of Baltimore. He rides a scooter to work every day. So, we're really invested. We have 2 dogs. It's a special place for us, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to help in any way that I can. If anyone is speaking, I can't hear.
No. Councilman Stokes?
Yes, I don't see, the vice chair of the committee, Councilman Burnett, so he's still not here. Am I correct?
No, sir. He's here.
No, I've been here since
Oh,
you started the hearing.
okay. Thank you. So I usually do a little different starting order for the questions. So the first questions will come from the vice chair, Burnett. The second will come from Councilwoman Clark. The next will come from Councilman Cohen, and that next questions will Councilman Schleifer have a question. So, Councilman Burnett, if you have any questions for Ms. Melody, you can proceed.
I didn't have any questions. Just want to thank you for your service and commitment to the city. My connection is kind of slow, so I'm gonna hold off on questions. I don't have good service right now.
Councilwoman Clark. Councilwoman Clark, you're next.
Sorry. Hi,
Good morning, Councilwoman.
Hengerer, is that how you say your name?
That's correct.
So, will you be part of, or do you even know yet? I believe the Ethics Committee is moving into the Inspector General's office as part of that operation. Are you aware of that? Are you part of that?
So my understanding is that the function of the Board of Ethics has now moved under the umbrella of the Inspector General's office.
Yeah.
How that looks, logistically or practically, I just don't know the answer to that question. In terms of, where we will physically meet. And I don't frankly know how or whether that will affect any of the deliberations. I don't necessarily know the process. It's just something that's going to have to develop over time.
Well, that's good. You'll be part of pioneering. I guess having your own home as the ethics board and having a little more stability, as a group. It's a very important group, and I think there's going to be a lot of things that. I expect to see a lot of positive change happening in Baltimore City as this, as the council that's here is joined by so many young and really good new council members. I think a lot of issues are going to be rising, and I'm glad you're going to be there to help out. You've got the experience with the law department and just living in Baltimore that I think you can add a lot to the ethics committee and its deliberations, because I think it's going to be a busy season in very good ways for transparency, for making decisions about things that we haven't even thought of yet, but will be on the horizon. So thanks for being willing to jump in and be a pioneer.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I have to say, I completely agree with your assessment, and I think it's going to be important that, particularly as you mentioned, because of a lot of change politically in our city, positive change and younger and newer.
Yeah.
That it's great, but I also think that my role and the role of the ethics board is to look at the code, interpret the code, not interject our own political positions into it. So I did want to make that point earlier, and I'm glad you sort of allowed me to do that. But in any event, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Cohen, you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hengerer, is that how I pronounce it?
It's a hard G, and it's also a hard and horrible last name, so you're doing fine.
Chair, mine is Berzoff Cohen, so appreciate that. Thank you for your service. We really do appreciate you stepping up. This is not so much a question, but one thing I think that the ethics board and we all should push is I think there should be some funding toward the ethics board. I think it's not a good look that we have an unfunded ethics board, that we have like part-time staff that take time out of their other duties to do to manage the ethics board. And so I would just say that I think it's an important function, and I think in this next term, we know that monies can be incredibly limited, that we're going to be hemorrhaging until the pandemic ends and probably well beyond that. But I think this should be a priority. So I just put in a plug for funding our ethics board.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I spoke with a former board member yesterday to prepare for this call, and she expressed the same hope that that would happen. So to the extent that I can advance that, I don't know in what way, but that's definitely will be on the horizon.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Schleifer, you have any questions? Councilman Schleifer. Councilman Schleifer must be muted. Okay. Councilman?
Are you guys voting now?
No, I actually had any questions.
No, I don't have any questions. I'm on scene over here at the explosion, so I'm just waiting for
Oh,
the vote,
okay.
and then I'm gonna log off.
Oh, yeah, okay, I forgot about that. All right. We will take public testimony. Ms. Curran, is there anyone on this virtual online that wanna,
No, Mr. Chair, not at this time.
okay. After the public testimony, we don't have any. That concludes the testify from the public. The committee will take a vote.
Are you voting now, or are you going to hear from Mr. Levi?
Yeah, I guess we can just go ahead and do that and get it all done at one time. Okay. Well, our next nominee is Mr. Levi Zeslow. Ms. Henninger, thank you. I'm sorry. Ms. Melody, thank you. I appreciate it. Our next nominee is Levi Zeslow, who will be nominated for the Civilian Review Board. Is okay, Mr. Zeslow. How you doing today, first of all? Hello? Mr. Zeslow?
Yes, good morning. Thank you very
Oh.
much for having me.
Okay,
There we
thank
go.
you. Okay. I guess you heard how we state your name, tell us about your background and interest in the position, and share your vision for the board. After you finish, the council, committee, the members of this committee will have questions for you, so you may proceed.
Thank you. And again, thank you very much to each one of you, to the mayor. It's my honor to be considered for the position on the Civilian Review Board, which is critical to Baltimore City and critical this time more than ever. My name again is Levi Zaslow, and I'm an attorney at Joseph Greenwald and Lake. I live here in Northwest Baltimore City, and I went to the University of Baltimore School of Law. And I have a robust practice, which includes significant civil rights work. And within my work, we work carefully with across the spectrum. Have seen a great amount of information and situations which cry out for civilian oversight. We've seen situations which require a safe space for people to come and bring their claims to be brought to light. And it's my honor to be considered for this position. And as part of my work, we're constantly looking at exactly the types of claims that are brought within the Civilian Review Board, including the Maryland Declaration of Rights and ensuring that people have the right to be heard. And as part of the way I grew up, I sort of almost grew up as a piece of that within my practice. I started off as the judicial intern for Judge David Mitchell, Baltimore City, and which was an incredible experience. I was the law clerk to Judge Althea Handy, also of the Circuit Court for Baltimore City. And as part of my practice, it's taking me from one end of Maryland to the other. But obviously, I have a passion for Baltimore City, and it would be my honor to serve in any way I can, and any way I can help the Civilian Review Board in Baltimore City would be my honor to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Zaslow, you look like you learned from some of the best in the courthouse, you know? They even
I
mentioned,
did.
yeah, they were, had a great track record there. So we're gonna move on. Councilman Burnett, do you have any questions for Mr. Zaslow?
So again, my connection is kind of poor. I just want to thank you for stepping up. It's a very, very important board position, especially with everything going on across the country and much needed police reform and rebuilding trust in the department. So thank you for stepping up.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Council. Councilwoman Clark, you have any questions?
No, just a comment. Thank you for being willing to serve and thank you for your history. That got you ready for what is one of our most important boards in the city of Baltimore, especially now. You will be your board and yourself should be very much involved in the consent decree and I'm sure you'll find yourself in key roles that are very, very important. And remember, independence of that board and it is essential because of the work that you do and the information that you need to do it right. And sometimes that puts you in a funny position with some of the people that nominated you, but that's life and that's the mission of that board and people there. And please, I'm sure that you will contribute to the integrity and the strength of that organization because that's what we need and sounds like you're ready for it. Thank you.
I am ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Cohen, you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zaslow, for your willingness to serve. You know, I'm thinking about the Civilian Review Board and thinking about sort of the consent decree and also in thinking about this moment that we're in as we reimagine public safety, as we hear calls to defund police or rethink just every element of our criminal justice system. I'm curious how you view the role of the board. As I'm sure you're aware, there's been some conflict between the city and the board itself about its ability to speak publicly in reviewing cases. So I'm just curious if you could give just a little, I guess, context into how you're thinking about this role, especially in this sort of intense moment that we're in right now as a city and as a country.
Well, it is an intense moment. That is definitely a way to say that. And I would be in favor, certainly, of an expanded role for the Civilian Review Board. There's no question that there needs to be independent oversight. There's no question that there needs to be independent review. These things have been clear in Baltimore City. They've been clear around the country. There's no doubt that when you often look into patterns in history, very often you can look into a history and there are red flags along the way. So there's no question that the Civilian Review Board should and ought to have the full gamut of information available to it. There's no question that they should have an expanded and critical role in policing the police and ensuring that the citizens of Baltimore City have a place to go to raise those complaints. And there's no question that they should be able to hear from witnesses and obtain the documents necessary to ensure that whatever information is necessary to make these decisions are being made available. And that goes to potentially expanding the jurisdiction. That goes to potentially expanding funding. Perhaps it goes to additional education for the public so they know that this is a resource that is available. And like you said, with the consent decree and everything else that's happening around us, there's no question that we need an expansive and we need a robust board with the ability to consider all of the information available to it.
Thank you. Appreciate your willingness to serve.
I believe Councilman Schleifer is at that unfortunate last, so I'm not gonna, I don't think he have any questions. So, Ms. Marguerite, do we have any testimony?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're gonna just go on and move on, and we're gonna be taking a vote. Is there a motion to nominate Ms. Melody Hillinger to serve as a member of the Ethics Board?
So moved.
Motion by Councilwoman Clark. Second by Councilman Cohen. Stokes is yes. Councilman Burnett?
Yes. Yes, sorry, I confused. Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer, if he
Yes.
is, thank you,
Yes,
sir.
Chair.
Thank you. Motion, I hear a lot of,
That's,
is there a motion to nominate?
I think that's Councilman Slifer, maybe off mute.
Yes, somebody's off.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to nominate Levi Zeslow as a member of the Civilian Review Board?
So moved.
so moved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilman Burnett moved it, Councilwoman Clark second. Councilman Stokes is a yes. Councilman Burnett?
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer?
Yes.
Thank you. After votes are completed, the committee will recommend a favorable report. The nominations will be placed on a Monday, August the 17th, 20 at the full council review, at the full council hearing, and take a review and take a vote at that time. On behalf of the mayor and the city council, I would like to thank both of you for your willingness and efforts to serve the citizens of Baltimore. If there is no other business, the committee is now adjourned, and congratulations to both nominees. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and thank you for your service.